Good morning, everyone. This is Dan, and I want to welcome you back to the Napkin Academy. Our lesson today is one about looking at the essentials of our idea, and I want to be even more specific, looking at only the essentials of our idea. That O is what's going to turn out to be important. Here's the simple thought that I'd like to share with everyone. I really think that the essence of an idea is the point at which our idea can no longer be reduced any further without a loss of distinction. So let's go ahead and look at the vivid version of what I mean. Here is a very simple idea. It's morning for me. I know that for many of you around the world it may be different times of the day. I don't know how many of you are coffee drinkers. This little cup of cappuccino looks pretty darn good to me. The essence of what this is clear and appealing to me. Here's what's not the essence of this idea. Here's a very detailed description of how a cappuccino machine gets put together. The distinction I'd like to make for the rest of our session is that a vivid idea to me is one that looks more like this than one that looks like this. Imagine that I really do have a complicated idea. Wouldn't it be beneficial, perhaps, if I was able to just dole out a little bit of the essence of that idea to you and say, here, try a little bit of this. At which point you might say, I really like that. Could I have a little bit more? And then I would run off and say, yeah, I'll be back in 1 second. Now that I've got you already on the hook, this is when I come in with my entire idea. You've got the essence, you liked it. Now you're willing, perhaps, to listen to the whole thing. This, of course, is taking us back to what we call the vivid forest, this kind of quiet place where we go when we have an idea and we really want to work on that idea and make sure that it's as vivid as it can be. We leave the noise and confusion of sort of the modern business world. We run off to our forest and we make our way around all of the trees and we come out on the other side with our idea as clear as it can be. As we know, the last 2 sessions we focused on the letter F from forest, which stood for finding the form of our idea, essentially finding kind of the underlying physical armature of our idea on which we could then lay all of the details. Today we're going to focus on the next letter, which is O, which, as we know, stands for only the essentials. Like our cup of cappuccino, the idea is that a vivid idea is one that can be expressed only through its essentials. Let me give you an example why. Most of us have been taught that when it comes time to present an idea, what we'd really like to do is start by giving a bunch of details, setting a lot of context, setting the scene, and then we might want to transition into giving some examples to bring it down to earth, and then at the end we get to the point. And this is a very effective way to tell stories. This is a very effective way to introduce concepts. But I also think that sometimes it can lose our audience very quickly. And here's an example. I want to talk for a moment about data security. And this was the central visual in an advertisement that I found from a company based out here in Silicon Valley that was talking about the data security offerings that it has. And it was a general interest magazine, and I thought it was really odd that you might be able to start by presenting your idea of data security by giving this tremendous amount of detail. And then this is our pyramid down approach. And I thought, well, what we really want to do, perhaps in business, but more to the point when we really need to be vivid, when time is of the essence, when people's attention is critical, I think we want to turn it around. I think we want to get to the point immediately. Let's make the point. Let's give the essence of our idea first. And then let's go ahead and give some examples. And then if someone is still interested, then let's go ahead and flesh out all of the details. Here's one of my favorite advertisements. This is data security from Google. At Google, we have a 2-step data security verification process, guarding your home with a grizzly bear and with a pit of snakes. So if someone's going to break into our data, first thing they have to do is get past the bear, and then they have to escape from the snake pit. Now, is this really going into the details of security? No. But is it vivid? Does it give us an immediate sense that there's something very powerful about the security of the system? I think so. So again, if we're going to talk about data security, this is a nice way to introduce it. Now I'm intrigued by this bear in the snake pit. Okay, Google, take me down through the details. I've been giving lots of presentations about making our ideas clear for a while. And it was a couple of years ago that I was invited to come out to this place out in Newport, Rhode Island, which is called the Naval War College. And it's where a lot of people have done a lot of thinking over the years on strategic planning. But one of the things that they show you when you walk into the main building is they're very proud to show you the floor of the dining hall. This is the floor, and you'll see that the floor is made up of white and black checkerboards. And for anybody who's ever played any chess or checkers, you'll say, wow, that looks kind of like a game board. Well, it's not surprising because it turns out that it was on the floor of Sims Hall in the 1920s and 1930s that naval admirals and commanders would take little model ships and then on the checkerboard floor would actually mark out sea battles. And they would move the ships around on the little squares trying to develop strategies. And it turns out that this is in fact exactly where the United States Navy's strategy of island hopping in the Pacific of World War II was actually mapped out. So when great task forces were sent across the Pacific Ocean, they were mapped out in advance on that checkered board floor. And I thought this was pretty interesting because this was the place at which I was taught the acronym BLUF. The concept is if we are in a very information-rich, highly distracting environment where we need to focus on a single task or on a single idea, it's very interesting to think about the presentation approach, which is called BLUF. BLUF is an acronym, and what it really stands for, of course, is the bottom line up front. If I've got an idea to deliver, it would behoove me to think about what is the ultimate takeaway from the idea, and not to leave that to the end, but go ahead and put it in the front. So BLUF intrigued me. It's always worth thinking that we need to have the bottom line, the essence of our idea, thought through before we begin to present that idea. Aside from perhaps trying to navigate lots of ships at sea, where else might bottom line up front be a useful way to think about delivering ideas? Because let's face it, how many of us are in a sea battle, whether it's a real battle or even a race? Probably not that many, not that often. But you know where I'll bet many of us do find a lot of our time? I'll bet a lot of us spend time in places like this, rooms like this, where we have our team around us and we're trying to think through what is the big idea that we want to share. Or maybe sometimes the room looks like this. Here's the whole team. We've got our idea over here. We need to present it to all of them, keeping in mind that all of these people are very, very busy themselves. And I think that the way to do that is to use our visual thinking system to come up with the bottom line up front. Do we remember these two guys? I introduced these two characters, the fox and the hummingbird, a long time ago as a kind of a visual analogy for the two different parts of our thinking system, of our brain. And we've got the fox over here, who I like to think is really our verbal mind. And our fox is very clever, and our fox tends to think like this. From A to B to C to D. I start here, and I go one, dun, 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 and I get to the point. And the bird, on the other hand, the hummingbird, is very flighty and zooming around in circles like this, and completely nonlinear, and completely about the visual. What is the map? How do I make a visual of it? Well, I want to bring these two characters back right to the center of our thinking, because it's the combination of these two, which all of us have, which I think gives us a breakthrough way to find the essence of our idea. So what I mean by that is if we have an idea, we might want to write it down with a great flurry of words, or perhaps some of us take out a pen and a piece of paper and start mapping things. And we're working very, very quickly and we're getting lots of stuff down, and before long the whole thing has snowballed. So now what I think we can do is we say, hey, I've got this drawing. What would happen if I had my fox use words to describe what's the picture that I've just drawn? Or if I started with words, why don't I activate my hummingbird to draw a picture of the things that I've just written? And what would happen if I did that a couple of times? For each thing that I write, I force myself to draw a picture of it, And for each thing that I draw, I force myself to write a caption for it. And then I continue to draw a picture of that. And you can see how over time, what's going to happen is I am going to distill my idea down step by step by passing it off between my verbal mind and my visual mind, with each step reducing the idea a little bit further. So let's say that we've got an idea. Could be about anything. Let's say it's about our business, a new product that we want to launch. We know, even if we don't know it right away, that at some point we have the essence of our idea. We know it's out there. It's this kind of very thin piece that says, you know what, this is what my idea is really, really about. But we don't start there, do we? No, we start with this big cloud. We start with all of this other stuff that we're thinking about, all of the things that we've written down, all of the things that we've collected, perhaps some of the maps that we've drawn, some of the mind maps or charts. We start with all of that. But you know, this is kind of crazy, isn't it? We've got our fox involved, we've got our hummingbird involved. This is no point to begin to share our idea with someone else. So what I'd like to share with you is something that I like to think about as the idea distillation curve. Simple little model, and it says, here's the essence of our idea. That's this big line along the bottom. But associated with that, all these little dots, is everything else. All of the supporting points, all of the details, all the examples, all the nuances, all of the exceptions, all of the other stuff that isn't the essence of the idea. Well, you can imagine what's going to happen if we show our idea to someone here. They're going to flip out. They're just going to explode. But wouldn't it be great if we could show our idea to someone at this point where we've been through this process of distilling it down to where the everything else and the essence are pretty much the same? So this is what I really, really want to focus on. How can we do this? We start here. We start our thinking with, of course, the underpinning of our idea and all of the stuff that's associated with it. And then we work it. This is where we go into our vivid forest. We work it and we work it and we work it until we really are at that point where we've got the essence of our idea figured out. This is the point at which we present our idea to someone else, and not before we've gotten there. Then, after we've presented our idea, for example, here's my nice hot cup of cappuccino. I went through a whole process to make it. Here it is. Do you like it? Now let me show you. Let me re-expand, reconstitute the idea, adding back in all of the details, keeping you along with me. We expand our idea back. That's why I call it the distillation curve. It's kind of this Venturi approach. We start here, here's where we present, and then once we've got someone with us, we expand it right back out, and they'll stay with us the whole time. How do we do it? Okay, here's where the fun begins. There is a method, and it really works. And I'm going to give you an example of it, and then I'm going to ask you to try it yourselves. I call this the half, half, half model. That is to say, when we start with our idea, let's not worry about finding the essence of it. Let's take a big old sheet of paper, write down everything we can think of, draw everything we can think of, and look at that thing. And then what we do is we cut our paper in half. Uh-oh. Now, draw it again, and you've only got half the space to do it. Well, we've had an opportunity to look at everything. We know what's there. We've started to see the connections. What would we leave out? And now we've started to boil our idea down. And then, when we say, I think I've got it, we cut our paper in half again. And now we're left, really, with nothing more than our napkin. This is editing in the vivid sense, that is, by bouncing back and forth between the two. And then, once we've got our idea on the back of our napkin, the essence of it, we share it with someone else. They say, hey, wow, that's pretty cool. I get it. Now we unfold it. Ooh, look at that. We get it back to this mid-level. Here's how I expand the idea. Still with me? Yep, still am. And now I unfold the whole thing, essentially going back right to where I started, but now a little bit cleaner. And now everybody's come with me along the journey. Idea distillation. We start with a big sheet of paper. We write and we draw and collect everything that we have. We reduce the size of the paper by half. We do it again. Here it is, the kernel of our idea. Here's where we present. We draw people in. Now we expand it back, double the size, double the size. The point, of course, is we do not start the presentation here. We start the presentation here. Let's make it real. Since it's morning for me and we started out talking about coffee, I want to share with you a story about working with a coffee company out here in the San Francisco Bay Area. And no, it's not this big coffee company which everyone's heard of. Starbucks, of course, biggest coffee retailer on earth, 15,000 stores around the world. No matter where you go on this beautiful world of ours, somewhere or another, you're going to find a Starbucks. No, I want to talk about a smaller company, a company called Peet's Coffee and Tea. Also getting an increasingly large footprint, but essentially focused on the west coast of the United States and then some major metropolitan hubs, New York, Chicago, and expanding, but expanding at a much slower rate than Starbucks did. And that's really the point of the story that I want to share with you. Because Peet's came to me a couple of years ago and said, we're thinking about our future, and we have a clear idea of what it is, but we want to know how can we best convey how are we going to grow. So what happened was the CEO invited me in, and with the team, we did exactly the distillation process that I've just walked you through. Here's how we began. With the group, we said, let's open up a big sheet of paper. In this case, it was lots of flip charts and whiteboards. And let's just collect every idea that we have that relates back to Peet's Coffee. So let's think about customers. And we wrote down we have people who are loyalists, we have coffee connoisseurs, we have the regulars, we have people who buy coffee only rarely. And then let's talk about our staff. And you'll notice, for those of you who've been by the 6x6, we're starting with the people. And then we talked about our products. Well, we have cups of coffee, we have bags of coffee, and we talked about our brand. So what do we have? Well, we have it smells good, it's of high quality, we're knowledgeable. And then we talked about we worry about our social responsibility, so being fair in the way that we operate and being honest and being environmentally sustainable. And then we have our physical locations, our stores and our plants and our offices, and we also offer supermarkets. And then we have our business, and we have to worry about money on a daily basis and a monthly basis. And then we have our objectives, we have to worry about growth. The point I want to make is we just went wild. So let's go ahead and draw a kind of a picture of the intersection of all of those different seemingly random ideas that we had. And the first view of the picture looked like this. We're talking again about our company, and we wanted to find some kind of vision and mission for where we're going to go that will be focused on two things. We've identified this. It's about growing. Our company has to grow, but we don't want to sacrifice quality. So why don't we think about dividing up everything we've drawn and written into different categories. And one category seems to be about the people, and another category is about the products. Another category seems to be about how we present ourselves, the brand of our company. Another category seems to be about the actual business. How do we make money? How do we stay stable and grow? And under the business, we certainly have our stores, and we have our retail partners. And then there's, underneath all of this, we have the whole back office. Don't we? We have our entire supporting infrastructure, how we train people, how we develop. And then what we did is we pulled in all of those pieces from the previous pages, and we started to map them in. You know, this was a nice kind of interesting academic exercise, but if we really look at a store, you know, here's what one looks like, and here we have a happy customer who comes in. How does this image actually overlay with this sort of theoretical work that we were doing a moment ago? Well, here is where we came up with the real essence. Imagine if this happy customer had a chance to meet the CEO of Peet's Coffee and said, you know, I'm a fan of your coffee. What are your plans for growing? Here's what would happen. The CEO would pull out the napkin, the picture that we drew by cutting in half the two previous big pictures that we drew. Our vision is to become the gold standard of quality coffee. Our mission is to appeal to you to build the biggest base possible of people who appreciate what we mean by quality coffee. In order to do that, we're going to break our business up into 4 different operating groups. One will be the serve group. Yep, these are the people that are waiting right here, waiting on you behind the counter. Then we have the develop group behind the scenes that are training these folks on where they fit into this chain of the quality that you see. Then we have the manage group, Who's the guy who's back behind the door here managing this particular store, who's concerned about making sure that it remains profitable? And then we have the Inspire group, which is all the senior executives making sure that the entire operation remains inspiring for everyone. From all of those ideas that we started with, we reduce it down to this. It can be reduced no further. Any further reduction would mean we were no longer talking about Peet's. We were talking about coffee in general. So this is as far as we could reduce the idea to the operating principle. We now expand it back out and say, well, if you want to know what our mission, what our vision really is, here's the entire vision statement. And if you want to know some more details about our mission, what do we talk about this group of like-minded, quality-oriented individuals, here's what we really mean. And if you want to know more details about each one of those 4 groups, what really motivates the people who are serving you? Well, about being clean and organized, the quality of their coffee, the speed of their service, the customer engagement. And if I'm the CEO, what is my role to inspire? Well, I want to make sure that I'm locally involved, I have good global outreach, I'm really focused on donations and corporate giving, and I'm really focused on making sure that people within the organization and without are rewarded and recognized. And underneath us, depending on which group you happen to join, here are the tools that we use and the measures that we have that make it common for all of us. And now let's go a little bit further. Let's say that someone decided to join this serve group. We expand it back even further and we say, okay, well, depending on what your role is going to be within serving, if you're going to be working at the barista service, that is, if you're going to be actually making the cappuccinos, here are the details and the specifics of what it is that you will need to know to do that with the quality that we appreciate. Now, if you're working the bar, that is, if you're taking orders and you're handling money, here are the tasks that you're going to need to do. And if you're the person who's bagging the beans and setting up the shop, here's the tasks you need to do. And now we can expand it further back out and say, here is all of the training material to each individual within the entire organization, no matter what you do, all using the essence of what we described on the back of that napkin. So the last thought I want to leave you with, and then we're going to turn this over to some homework, folks, that we have, is you have an idea. Start with a big sheet of paper. Write down everything. Draw everything. Think about the connections. I have this over here. Oh, and what about this? Don't stop yourself. Oh, I did a piece of research and I came up with this over here. And isn't it interesting? This links to this. And now they kind of connect over here. And I can loop this back in. And now, take that piece of paper, fold it in half both ways, cut it down. Of all the things that I just drew and wrote, what are the ones that I need to keep to make sure that I haven't lost the essence of my idea? And now, take that piece of paper, cut it in half, fold it over. Let me introduce you to my idea. Something to think about. All right, with that, I'd like to give you a little bit of homework. This is a tricky one in the sense that this involves real thinking work. It's simple, but it's not necessarily easy. To come up with the essence of our idea is often one of the most challenging things that we have to do. But using these vivid tools, passing the idea back and forth between writing it and drawing it, writing what we drew, drawing what we wrote, gives us the ability to distill our idea down to its essence. Pick a favorite movie. What I'd like you to do is on a big old sheet of paper, write out and draw out the main characters, just real quick, using our simple little portraits, and the main plot. What happens in your movie? And then what I want you to do is take that and cut it in half. And see if you can't boil down the movie to its essential elements. See if it's possible. How small can you make your piece of paper and still be able to represent the movie in a way that we would know what movie it is? So that's your homework. I think it should be a lot of fun. I look forward to seeing what you are able to turn back in. Debbie, are you with us?
I'm here, Dan.
Okay, so Debbie, you've turned in 2 great pieces of homework in a row. So I'm gonna ask you to take this away for a moment, and you've got 2. Could you just kind of brief us a little bit on what was the story that you chose, and then walk us through sort of the vivid form that you had found?
The first story is a little book by Tommy Newberry called The 4A Principle, and basically what it does is it walks you through how to focus your thought life, and they
Okay.
did it around a biblical reference to Philippians 4:8. Yeah, so the quote is Philippians 4:8, and this particular version is, to focus on whatever is true, noble, just, pure, lovely, of good report. And if there's anything that's good there or anything that's praiseworthy, to meditate on those things or focus your thoughts on those things.
Okay.
And as I was thinking about this, I was like, this kept coming up to me. I tried to like find some other pictures or some other quotes, and it's like, this really kept coming up to me. It's like, how do I, put this into some sort of picture? And I thought it would be a flowchart, a process. The gist of the book is that you can find joy by following Philippians 4:8. So I put the little quotation there at the top. And then I went through it and said, it's a series of questions. Ask yourself, sort of whatever's going on in your life or wherever you are, is it beautiful? Is it true? Is it honorable? And I tried to put a little picture beside each one because I really wanted to share this with my son, who's 5.5. So I thought the little visuals would help him sort of get it. So I went through the list. And then I said, well, there's sort of like two possibilities here, some decisions to make. And if it's yes, what would you do? If it's lovely, what would you do? And I thought you should, give some praise and recognition, and also to give thanks, which would sort of bring more joy into your heart. And in Tommy Newberry's book, he says, this is not to ignore your problems. That's not what it's about. So I said, okay, so the other side of the coin is, it's not some of those things. But is it a real problem? Something, dire like unemployment or, something, that has a very major impact? Or is it stuff that's just annoying, like traffic? So I sort of put those down as two possibilities. And then again, sort of, after you made a decision, what would you do about it?
So can you take us through one that's just annoying for a moment?
Sure, just annoying. So like, you're sitting in traffic. Pray for patience and understanding. And again, bring your thought process back to the things in Philippians 4:8. Maybe where you're sitting in traffic, it's lovely. You have a beautiful view. So focus on that.
Okay, so what if it turns out that it is a real problem, sitting in traffic? Let us say it is unemployment or sickness or something like that.
Right. And I thought, the help that you would want would be guidance and wisdom, something to help you sort of decipher where to go from here. And then after you have some guidance and wisdom, to address the problem. And actually, I've been living with this. I drew this out on a very large piece of paper, and it's been in my kitchen on the wall for, since I drew it. And I think that there's one change I would make here. Instead of it having go address the problem to joy, I would draw the line back to, again, focus on Philippians, and then down. Because you sort of want it to be a circular thought. You want to bring your thoughts back to...
Did I draw that right? Back to the top?
Right.
And then let it come back through.
Right.
I think it's interesting, Debbie. You said that you took this on a big sheet of paper and now you've pinned it up where you can see it. Was the exercise something that was useful for you?
Yes, very useful. I've been working on sort of managing my thought life and my prayer life for a while now, and I've read Tommy Newberry's book probably 3 times over the course of as many years, and I've had difficulty putting it into practice. This picture, in the 3 or 4 weeks that it's been sitting there, has made a very large impact in managing my thought process. And when I'm struggling with something, what do I do? And also, on the other side of the coin, it's like I'm more cognitive of what's great here. Maybe the situation's not perfect, but there's something good about it that you can be thankful for.
Isn't that wonderful? And I would guess that a lot of that we can attribute to, again, this act of trying to find the form of the idea. In a similar way, so many things that I read, I know that they're important to me, but somehow they just kind of pass through my mind. They don't stick. And for me, that was the idea. If you can find the form, and in your case, you did exactly the right thing of saying, well, I've got a sequence of things, so if I've got a sequence, the flow, or rather the form, is going to follow that of a flow chart. And you adopted exactly that. This is really beautiful, Debbie. This is really, really, really good. And I'm happy to hear that it was something that you found useful enough to put up on the wall. And you had sent one more in, so I figured as long as we've got the phone going, why don't you walk us through the second one? And this one was Born Free. This one you just sent in the other day. So take us real quickly through this, if you would.
And this is the first page of Born Free, and it's basically a description of where the author lived and her husband and what they did. And they lived in an area of Kenya, a very remote area of Kenya, and he was a game warden, and she was his wife and the author of a book, the book called Born Free. So I, sort of drew them in their little uniforms and put them on the map. And most of their work, because he had a very large territory, was spent on safari. So they spent a lot of time in their Jeep and in their gear and their camping equipment. And so I thought that was sort of essential, that first, couple of paragraphs really was a good portrait of sort of what was there.
This is lovely, and in fact, this is exactly the same thing I think I might have mentioned in one of our lessons that I often do with my own children is when we come across a new book, one of the first things we do is we create a kind of a character map, portraits of who's involved, and you've gone ahead and done the map of where they are, and then drawing, sort of the what's of their life. So Debbie, this is fantastic work. I really thank you for sharing it with all of us. Hey, thank you all for another great lesson. This is Dan signing off from the Napkin Academy, but don't go away. Now on our new platform, you can still submit your homework. Debbie, our community manager, is going to join you right now to show you exactly how to do that, and I really encourage you, do your homework. Okay, take it away, Debbie. See you soon.
We hope you enjoyed this Napkin Academy classic video. We've made it easier than ever to share your homework. After you've completed your homework and have a JPEG or PNG file saved on your computer, come back to this course. Once you're back here, scroll to the bottom of the screen, and in the comments box, you can add a comment. I'm just going to call this one My Homework. You can also add images by clicking on the Insert Edit Image button here. In the source box, click on the file. In the Images window, click on Upload, and then click on Add Files. This is going to take you to your computer where you can search for your images. I'm just going to search for mine in Pictures, and I'm going to choose this image here. You can also add multiple images here. Click Upload. After the upload is complete, click Close. Then scroll down, and you'll see that the last image is here, and it's checked. This is the one we just uploaded. Click Insert. I suggest in the Dimensions box you change the maximum to 1200 pixels and leave the Constrained Proportions box checked. You can also add an image description here if you'd like. Click OK. You'll see that your image has been added to your comment. And now the last step. The most important one, make sure that you click the green comment button here to upload your homework to the Napkin Academy. We hope to see your homework soon.